Hi, I'm Wilf Nichols, this is Homegrown, and I'm so glad you joined us today. There's a great show with lots of interesting information. On this week's show, we're going to take you on a tour of the beautiful grounds of Government House here in St. John's. Her Honour, Eve Roberts, will give us a bit of the history that goes with this significant site, and Head Gardener Fred Walsh will talk to us about some of the significant gardening challenges that go with the grounds surrounding this historic building. Debbie Preston is back to talk to us about the diseases that attack the horse chestnut and the common pin cherry tree. She gives us some advice on how to deal with them. I'm back on the trail again, and this time to talk about a beautiful and scented wild rose that is often found around the province. So I think we can safely say we've got an interesting show for you today, so we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm in a beautiful garden here next to a beautiful house, and this is a really big part of our heritage. I'm standing in front of Government House, and this is the home of the Lieutenant Governor, and I'm with Her Honour Mrs. Eve Roberts. Thank you for letting us come today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Wilf.
So tell us about this beautiful building, Government House. Is it, how long has it been here?
Well, it was built in 1829 by Thomas Cochrane, who was the governor at the time, and as you can see, it's right at the head of Cochrane Street with a beautiful view down to the harbour.
Right. And it's always been the residence of the governor or the lieutenant governor?
Yes, I think it's certainly in Newfoundland, it's the oldest building that's still used for its original purpose.
Wonderful. And what is amazing, this is a private residence, but the grounds around are totally public. People, whether you like it or not, people can come here anytime they like.
365 days a year there are people walking through the grounds, yes.
Wow. But an old house, an old established landscape, but that's got to create a few challenges.
Well, of course, staffing is always one challenge, and you know what we can grow is another challenge. A lot of these trees here are probably as old as the house.
Really?
But the beech trees live well over 200 years.
Right, right.
But we've had some help this year with our trees. The Grand Concourse has, last year did an inventory for us.
Yes.
As to, you know, what year a tree should come down and what should be replanted each year, so that we keep this beautiful canopy. We don't want all the trees to come down in the same year and be left with nothing.
Well, trees have got a lifetime, and buildings should be preserved, but you can't take a tree forever. It has to come down sooner or later. But you also, I think, have to have some help with these wonderful annual plantings here.
Yes, our staff is very small, so mid-June we have a group of volunteers who come. They arrive about 10 o'clock in the morning, and by noon every annual is planted. Wow. And then we have lunch. So the volunteers, we have some of the Botanical Garden Friends of the Garden, we have some from the Women's Institutes, we have some of my Tai Chi group, my painting group, one of my predecessors and a group of her friends and her daughter's friends, and it's a great morning.
Well, it's a fabulous area, and the lawns are looking in great condition, but of course, what was it, 800 people come for a garden party on this lawn, so that must be a bit of a bit of traffic on here. It is a bit of a
traffic, and of course the last few years we've had the spanworm, which is a bit, a bit of a challenge for a garden party too.
That's right.
But the lawn seems to do very well, and this year we even had the constabulary horses in on the lawn.
Boy.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful space, and there's a beautiful space right behind us, and that's your greenhouse. I can see a bougainvillea in full bloom. This must be, is this a bit of a playground for Your Honour?
Well, yes and no, but it's a working greenhouse, and some of the plants in there just live in there permanently, but most are house plants that are rotated in through the house during the year, so that the house is always filled with plants. Yes, and of course we have another greenhouse down behind me here.
Right.
Besides this one, in the other greenhouse, in the spring, all the annuals are started there from seed, and then after the annuals go out, it's not long before the the Christmas.
Yes, that's right. The poinsettias.
The poinsettias
right,
go in. About 300 poinsettias go in.
So we think about gardens as sort of this sort of pleasure and aesthetic thing, but this really is a working garden. We've got to keep the place inside looking wonderful with cut flowers. You've got grounds to keep going. So your staff must be working hard.
They do, and historically, of course, I think Government House grew all its own vegetables here, because you can see the outline down by the other greenhouse of where there were big vegetable gardens in the old days, down where the old stables were.
So who's in charge of all this?
Well, our head gardener Fred Walsh is in charge, and he's the person you should speak to get some more details.
Okay, well, we're going to go off and see Fred Walsh and walk around the grounds with him. And Mrs. Roberts, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule to show us around here. This has been a real treat for us.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm just in front of the greenhouse down here in Government House, and it's not the biggest greenhouse in the world, but it really is a very busy one. And supervising the greenhouse operations and the operations of this entire beautiful garden is Fred Walsh. Hi, Fred.
Hello, Will.
You are a busy man.
Very, very busy.
Now, we saw some wonderful annual displays up at right near Government House,
right.
And they all come from this little greenhouse here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we do quite a bit of growing in the greenhouse here. Pretty much everything that we grow, or we transfer up top in the grounds. The annuals. After the annuals, then the poinsettias will start. Then Easter lilies. We leave them forced bulbs in there. We plant all our bulbs in there and transfer them to the root cellar. And over the winter, we have an array of color of daffodils and tulips. So pretty much everything that comes out of this greenhouse is for Government House, and there's a constant supply of flowers.
Because we go to commercial greenhouses where they're producing huge amounts for their customers, right. But I don't really think in this as being this huge production, but it really is.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, there's an amazing amount of work goes into it, but it has to be done. There are certain functions, receptions, dinners that we have to cover. So during the year at different times, and everything is planned ahead 6 months probably beforehand.
Wow. Such
as in the case of the poinsettias, might be in any day now, but what happens is, well, 6 months ago that was planned out. The annuals as well, 6 months before time. All the designs for the beds were all done, and so everything has to just come in on time, and it takes quite a bit of work. But the greenhouse is so important to us down here that it supplies all the Government House, and in our case now, Colonial Building, Unified Family Court, and Commissariat House, we're also growing for them now. Busy.
Because I looked in there and it's empty, but you say in the next couple of days?
In the next few days, yes. It's only empty for maybe a month of the year.
Really?
Pretty much, yes. And then there's constantly holiday crops such as Cinnaria, Calceolaria, flowering shamrock for St. Paddy's Day, so there's always something that we've got to grow.
Well, and of course outside there's a huge amount of lawn to upkeep.
Oh, 21.68 acres, and big time. I mean, once it's cut, it's got to be cut again, pretty much.
So by the time you get to one end of it, you have to start again at the other.
So we have a man there that does that, and he'll probably get a cut, and when he's done, then that's it. He's way to go again, you know.
I was looking around and talking to Mrs. Roberts about the trees here. How many trees have you got here on the grounds?
Well, we've just completed a study, and I mean, we've come up with just over 500, almost 550 trees. Yeah, so there's quite a few to kind of take care of. We've got the biggest problem, of course, is that with that many trees is getting the amount of the labor help that you need, doing the maintenance on those trees as well. We've had it's been recommended now through the study that we're at the point where a lot of birch trees here now are coming to the end of their lifespan.
Well, how long? Because we've got a house here of about 180, 190 years old.
Exactly.
How long does a birch tree live?
Well, a birch tree here in this climate here in the eastern side of the province is usually, in here we've noticed, maybe 80 years.
Right.
You know, we've checked that out and studied on a study, and the native birch though as well would be a better birch to probably plant, because we'll probably get 120 to 130 years from that.
Even so.
It's, so we've got, but each year now with 10, I mean, there's at least 10 trees that have to come out, and we've had to rejuvenate, or replenish, and we'll put 10 new ones in each year. So there's always from here on in now in the future, we've got to replenish the trees.
Well, that's interesting, because we were at Cornerbrook House in our first series, and similar situation of a wonderful landscape that's becoming so mature, there has to be some renewal going on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's such a big place. You have to,
it is.
So many trees.
It's a windy day today, and I see quite a few of the trees are a little bit one-sided, which is a classic Newfoundland and Labrador-looking tree.
Very much so.
Is there anything you're doing along those lines?
Yeah, well, for the future now, what we've got to do, we've top dressed most of the trees now. We have some open areas over there, and we've created what you call windbreaks now. We're going to try and bring them along that way, but we've had Dr. Sandy Robinson, who's been a great help. He's been a great consultant, come in, and we're going to create windbreaks over the next number of years, right down throughout Bannerman Road there, and all the trees that are planted for dignitaries, hopefully we'll be able to protect them and bring them along nice and...
So could we go see this windbreak?
Oh, we sure could, yes.
Okay,
sure.
well, let's go off there. Well, we're on the west side of these grounds, and boy, it's a little windy over here.
It sure is. Well, this is the problem over here, you know. We've always had this problem, especially with the trees that we plant here for the dignitaries, and it's a constant battle against the elements of the weather, and the biggest one is the wind.
Yeah.
You know?
So we've got a bunch of little, almost kidney or long-shaped beds here, full of woody plants. Quite a variety of plants here. What have we got here? We got well, obviously we've got birch.
We have the birch right now. Along with the birch, we have a willow.
Okay, well, let's go see those.
Right here.
All right, the willow in the middle there.
The willow, yeah, just in here in the middle there. We have a Weigelia here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, a 9-bark over here.
And so the willow would obviously get up to 20 feet in time, as will the birches and the 9-barks and the Physocarpus and the Weigelas. They'll fill up in between.
And they'll all do the job that we're hoping that they'll do, which is to provide a windbreak for the trees that are planted here in the open areas.
Because these are not just any old trees, are they?
No,
these are rather important trees.
Very important. I mean, we've had trees planted here back in the 60s, and we've had trees planted by presidents, royalty. We have a section for royalty, we have a section for governor generals, a section for premiers, and we also have presidents of other countries.
Really?
Sure.
So it's a look at history and international history to boot.
Wow. Yes, exactly, big time.
So could we possibly go over and have a look at some
Sure, I'd love to show you some. Sure.
Okay, well, let's wander over there.
There we go.
So, Mrs. Franklin Roosevelt, October the 9th, 1961. So, this must be one of the oldest trees here?
This one here, actually, this is not the oldest tree. The Governor General Vanier has one that back in 1960 was planted. So this will be next to that one, I guess.
And I can see why you need some windbreaks. It really is pretty windy under here.
Yes, it certainly has.
But picked up. Nevertheless, even in this wind, this is a beautiful tree. This is a copper beech, isn't it?
Copper beech, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those trees that people should use a bit more. I just love this.
Stately tree. We've got an amazing amount up on the grounds of beech. Beautiful beech gardens up there, yes.
Wow. So I walked past a few trees. There was trees planted by Jean Sauvé and Rainer Titian. It really is a bit of a walk through history.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is, and I mean the beauty about it in my case is that I get to meet some of these people, not in the 60s, but in the 70s on, and like royalty, the Queen. Diana's planted a tree here. Prince Charles, Prince Edward. There's royalty and other peoples from other countries.
So it started in 1960, but it's continuing on.
It just continues on, yes, very much so. And a premier, I mean, the premier will plant a tree here after each term as well.
We can do it. So. And certainly there's been various lieutenant governors. I noticed. Dr. House's tree up there.
Yes, yeah, an Austrian pine. He planted. So whatever their preference would be, then we will fit it into the landscape somehow.
That's a wonderful idea. This place is open every day. Anybody can walk through it. It's a private residence, but the garden is a delight. Have a walk through there and come and have a little look through history. Learn a few prime ministers and a few lieutenants governor and a few governor generals. It really is a delight. Fred, it's been great spending some time with you. Thanks for showing us around.
My pleasure. I loved it.
And I want to come back and see you when you get ready on bulbs, because you do a lot of stuff with bulbs.
Sure, fantastic. I'd love to have you back.
So we're going to come back see Fred at another time, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now we're off to see Debbie Preston, and she's going to tell us how to deal with black knot and leaf blotch.
This week we're going to look at two common problems that you'll see around the area here in Newfoundland. We're going to look at a horse chestnut with a leaf blotch, and we're going to look at the pin cherry with black knot. This example of a horse chestnut is a small tree, young tree, planted here in the garden. And you can see that the leaf blotch is developing throughout the leaves, these brown spots all throughout. How can you tell the difference between leaf blotch or leaf spot or leaf scorch? Horse chestnuts get what's called leaf scorch, which usually develops around the margin of the leaf. This browning and dry crispiness happens along the margin. In this case, you can see that it's sort of sporadic throughout the leaf, not just at the margin, it's inside. So you're getting more of a blotching effect. The blotch is caused by a fungus disease, whereas leaf scorch is actually physiological from the leaf drying out. So if you looked at this under the microscope, if you took a close look with a magnifying glass, you may be able to see the fungus spores on the underside, the little black specks, and it takes a really close look. Like I said, it might be something that you'd have to do in a lab. But we can sort of diagnose it because of the irregular pattern and the fact that it's throughout the leaf. Why is it developing? What is happening with this tree? Well, we know this tree is a large tree with an extensive root system, so it's going to outgrow the situation that it's in. It's pretty confined. It's in a small planter with a lot of other shrubs around it, so it's suffering from lack of water. A little bit dry soil here at the moment too because of the dry summer. So that's one of the reasons why it's developed. The plant is under a little bit of stress. Also, the fungus lives in the old leaves that have fallen from last year. So you want to make sure that you clean that up. Don't let it sit over the winter, and don't compost it. Take out those old leaves and destroy them. The other thing that you can do once it's developed in the plant is in the spring, before the leaves have come out, you can use a dormant spray, something like the dormant spray kit. You can spray down the foliage, the branches before the foliage develops. That's why it's a dormant spray. That'll help kill some of the spores that have overwintered. Also, top dressing with a fresh coat of soil underneath, and that'll bury some of the spores as well. So that's one way of controlling this disease. It's a serious problem in nurseries, but it's not bad in the home garden. It's not going to kill your plant, but it just makes it look unsightly. We'll go on and look at the pin cherry, which is further down the path. So here we have the black knot, which we have an example of in the pin cherry. Black knot is a fungus disease which you'll often find in a lot of cherry trees, plum trees, apricot trees. It's generally a disease of neglected trees, of old native pin cherries, of old cherry trees or plum trees, especially around old cottages or old homesteads. Like I said, it's a problem, again, in a neglected tree, a tree that hasn't been cared for. You'll find that it takes 2 years to develop. The first year, the bark cracks open and the fungus infects the tree. The next spring, you'll find a fuzzy, greenish, yellowish growth, and that's when the spores develop and are released and can reinfect that tree or infect other trees. By the end of the summer, you'll get these black knots develop. That's the old spores, and it's hardened, and you get a black knot. Once that's developed, the fungus is already in the trunk of the tree, so the only way to get rid of it is to prune it out. A tree that's really extensively damaged, you may have to cut it down. It's because you have to prune so hard. You want to be able to at least cut back 4 to 6 inches below the knot because it's in the tissue. So it's something that, again, neglected trees. If you have special cherry trees or special apricots around, then you want to be able to protect them, and you're in the woods or there's old native pin cherries in the woods that are infected, you could probably cut out the old pin cherries and reduce the infection on your special cherries and special plums in your fruit garden. Hopefully that's something that you've learned about in your garden and a way to control it. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. That was some great advice, and especially so since pin cherries are such an important plant in our northern gardens. Well, picture this. Nice warm summer day, you're out for a walk and there's this beautiful scent. Well, where's it come from? Just watch and see. This is one of our native roses. This is Rosa nitida, or the northeastern rose. Now, there are roses all over this world. There are something like 100 different species of roses, and they are such a popular plant from a horticultural standpoint. There is something like 20,000 different varieties. So 100 species, 20,000 varieties. Now this is a species rose, Rosa nitida. There are 2 native species of roses here in Newfoundland and Labrador. This one, the northeastern rose, and also the Virginia rose, which is called Rosa virginiana. There are some other roses that we'll see from time to time, in fact quite commonly around Newfoundland, and they are roses that have been brought here by settlers. And the most common of those are those big rugosa roses like Hansa, which is a pink one, heavily scented rose, and also that white one, that double white one called Blanc Double du Coubert. But this is a native rose, and where you would find this would be in a bog or a fen, very wet area. We're looking at these roses because rose hips have been used for years as a source of vitamin C. And a bunch of researchers, including us at Munn Botanical Garden, are looking at some of these rose hips as potential sources of new medicines, antioxidants, vitamin sources, and sources of a substance called lycopene. So we have a lot of work to do. We'll be working with these native roses, see if we can start growing them horticulturally, can we grow them agriculturally, and can we harvest those hips for some medicinal use in the years to come. It's an exciting time to be interested in roses here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Well, that's another show done. I do hope you liked it. Next week, we'll learn why chiropractor Krista Prouse is so busy in the spring. A significant part of her clientele in the spring are gardeners. Krista took time out of a busy schedule to show us some common mistakes gardeners can make when working in their own backyards. She will also show us some simple exercises you can do to avoid those common back and leg pains. If you've got apple trees in your garden, then you'll want to hear from Debbie Preston. She's going to advise us on the control of apple scab. And out on the walking trail, you'll have to look pretty close to see native twin flowers. They are small but well worth the effort to search and find these beauties. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you next week.